Today, I got the pleasure to talk with John Darby, the president and CEO of Torch, the Texas organization of residential care homes. And it was just a really cool conversation with him because he owns and operates seven different facilities here in Texas, and I just felt like it's a good 24 minutes of just some good stuff that you can learn from, and hopefully you enjoy it. So take a listen. At the very end, John gives a coupon code for the upcoming Torch conference. So listen until the end, and we'll put it in the show notes too. But at the end, John gives the coupon code to save $50 off the upcoming Torch conference, September 13, 14, and 15 here in Frisco, Texas. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening today to the Senior Living Mastermind podcast. I'm joined today by John Darby, who's a friend of mine who is deep into the senior living industry. John is the president and CEO of Torch here in Texas. That's the Texas organization of residential care homes. And John is also an owner and an operator of MercyHouse, which is a series of assisted living facilities here in Texas. John, thanks so much for joining us today. Where in the world are you at today?
Well, Mitch, first of all, thanks for having me. I don't know where I'm at. It's wearing so many hats. I'm always someplace different, and sometimes I got to look up just to see whether it's night or day.
Yeah, you're a busy guy for sure. You're doing lots and lots of things. So thanks so much for making time today to come on and talk with the audience and myself. I appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. Well, a lot of our listeners are folks who are, they're just getting started. Some of them are trying to get licensed, and some of them are getting together their funds to get into assisted living and into senior living. And you're a guy who's had some success in this. So I'd love to know, what would you tell the person who's just getting in? What are a few things you could tell those folks to help them out and move them along? What would you say?
I would say the most important thing you can do to your success is get involved in your trade association. Now I know that sounds self-serving, but there is no better way to learn than to learn from people that are actually doing it. So I know there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. I know that there's a lot of training courses. I mean, in fact, Torch offers some of them. Mm-hmm. And while those are good tools and they're good steps to take, there's just nothing like learning from people that are in the middle of doing it. And I would say that, that really has been the hallmark of my success is my day job at Torch. I'm just always around people that are doing the business, and everybody has something to teach you. And even today, I'm always looking for better ways to do things, and quite frankly, learning from others' mistakes as well. So, find your local trade association. There are lots of them out there. There are a lot more of them out there, depending on where you're at, for larger or assisted living facilities or senior care facilities. But if that's all you've got, that's better than nothing. Fortunately, here in Texas, we have a pretty robust organization with chapters all around the state. But just the more time you can spend with people that are in the business every day, the better prepared you're going to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I know it's the same for me in my industry, being around people that are, doing new things and learning new things. And especially if you're just starting out, a lot of the problems that you run into, it's almost guaranteed somebody else has already crossed that bridge. So when you're
there are always new mistakes to be made.
Yeah. But when you're in that community, it's like if you're not afraid to ask, it's just one question away from getting, the answer you need to get to whatever it is, the next thing, where you need to be.
Very true.
Very good. So tell me if I'm wrong, John, but I think that you are up to 7 facilities now. Is that correct?
So yeah, we have 16-bed facilities in sprinkled around Central Texas.
Wow. Congratulations, man. That's great. I know it takes a different skill set to go from one to, to be in your seat where you've got, seven. What would you say to a person or an operator who's got one or two and they're looking to grow? What's the skill set that they need to look or aspire to get, to where they could get one day to five, six, seven, 10 facilities?
Sure. Well, so we started with 1 7 bed, and if I had to do it over again, I would do it exactly that way. Is there's nothing like getting and being in the trenches, which you're going to be in the trenches forever. It's just which trench are you going to be
Mm,
in? And I have spent my time covering an overnight shift
mm,
with a resident who was inappropriately placed,
mm.
which means I let them in my building because their check didn't bounce. And they screamed at me for 8 hours straight and flung anything at me that they could get their hands on. And so that's just the best way to start. And again, I would do it that way all over again. But you're exactly right. It's a very different skill set from 1 to 2, and then it's a whole different skill set when it's 2 to where we're at now at 7. And I would say that probably the my biggest regret at 7 is that I do no longer get to be down in the trenches with the residents as much.
Mm.
Every now and then I do get to pop into a building, and if they're calling bingo, I'm scooching them out of the way and I'm calling bingo.
That's
Or
great.
if there's a puzzle going on, I'm going to pop in and help with the puzzle. But I just don't get to do that as much anymore. And so I would say that for us, my biggest, I won't say it's a regret because that's just the nature of the business, is that now I don't know every employee on site and I don't know every resident, but we work very hard to be that small facility. So we might have 7 locations, but I don't want anybody to know that there's 6 others. I want you to think that you're my only resident. And
Mm.
so I plaster my cell phone number everywhere. I plaster my email address everywhere, both with employees and with resident and their families. And so, do I get calls where I have no idea what they're talking about? Yep. Then I'm going to have to circle back around with staff. Got to do a little bit of dancing because, of course, I want them to know that they are my focus. And some might consider that disingenuous, but it's not, because okay, yes, you weren't my focus before this phone call, but now you are.
Right.
And so, for me, while I used to have a personal relationship with every employee and every family, now my goal is to have a personal relationship with all of my direct reports,
Mm.
and then coach them to have that same relationship with their direct reports and their families. And as you said, again, that's a different skill set.
I love that. And I love what you said about, kind of the con of growing, right? Is that you're not as close to your residents and the staff. And nobody gets into the senior living industry if they don't have a real heart for people. And they don't
Yeah.
last long if they don't have that. So tell us what the heck got you into senior living? What's that
Well,
story?
yeah. So my background is in trade associations. I've been doing trade associations for 25 years, and I'm actually a certified association executive, which they tell me is the equivalent of an MBA.
Mm.
But I think if you don't have an MBA, that's what you say. And since I do, I just kind of shower over everybody. But so started working for the Texas Organization of Residential Care Homes, and one of the hallmarks of my career, and again back to my first answer to your first question, is that when you're working for an association, you're around people doing the business every day, and it tends to self-select. Is, first of all, if you're going to get involved in your industry, you've got the heart of a teacher. Generally, you've got the heart of giving back to your peers. So it kind of self-selects to a certain mindset of people that are involved in the industry. But then also, it tends to be, certainly your board of directors and your committee chairs and things, they have to have a successful enough business that they can be away from it,
Mm.
and that they can fund their activities, right? So our annual conference is coming up. Board members have got to be away for 3 to 4 days from their business, and so they have to have a certain level of seasoning in the business, shall we say, to be able to do that. And so I was working for the organization for 3 or 4 years, and really enjoyed the the giving back. Is that so? It's just a very special industry.
Mm.
I found that visiting members became one of my favorite things to do, because even though it wasn't my place, I found myself calling bingo one time,
Mm.
and just loved it. And so 3 or 4 years into the industry, or into the working for Torch, I realized, I think I might know how to do this.
Yeah.
And there was an owner who was moving, and needed to sell his facility, and it just ended up being a perfect storm. And again, everything I do in our buildings, I learn from somebody at Torch. And
Mm.
so I don't do everything exactly like any other one member, but whenever I see somebody doing something better than I do, I'm on it. Let's adopt that. And so,
Yeah.
the first, I'll give you a real world example. When I first thought about doing an electronic medication administration record, I thought, no way could a small facility afford that. Came across another small facility that was doing it, and they just sang its praises. And I thought, well, maybe I was wrong. And sure enough, it turns out I wasn't just wrong, I was really wrong. Not only
Mm.
is it extremely affordable, but it creates so many efficiencies, cuts out so many inaccuracies. And so that's just one example. But anything you see us doing in any of our buildings, we learn that from somebody in our association.
Mm. So good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you talk a little bit about innovation there. And so here's a cool question I think that could get you to think a little bit. If you had 10x the budget right now, what would you spend it on?
So, that's it's an interesting question that we kind of it's not really a hypothetical for us. Um, it's our growth curve is what's throttling our growth is just our drive to be a small business.
Mm.
And so, for us, we will not grow faster than we can stay connected.
Mm.
And so our company mission statement is to make life better.
Love that.
And that's it. Make life better. And obviously, as a senior care business, that starts with our resident, but that's not the end of it. Um, I recognize that in my seat, I'm not the one that makes our residents' life better. It's my caregivers, it's my direct caregivers, it's my staff.
Mm.
And so, if I just had a blank check that I didn't have to worry about profitability, I'd jump in and offer more support to my caregivers.
Mm.
They many of them are in it because it's a calling. You don't get into it as an owner for as an investment. Hey, let me go make money, but you can.
Yeah.
Um, Conversely, you don't get in as a direct caregiver because of money, right? I have people that drive past the sign at the Dairy Queen that says they'll start you at $4 an hour more than what I'm paying them after 2 years, and they don't even blink
Mm-hmm.
because it's a calling.
Yeah.
And so we really do focus on making their lives better. Because again, at the end of the day, I mean, as I say that, it's not all fluff and oh, John's this warm and fuzzy guy. You get into my budget meetings, and you'll know really quickly that that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But we do that from a self-serving position. Is that I know that I can't make my residents' life better unless I can make my staff's lives better, and that comes out in, we spend all the same money that everybody else does. We just think about it a little bit differently. So I've always gonna, I don't pay my full budget that we could possibly afford and scrape every last penny out of it and throw it into payroll. My staff know that we don't compete on pay. If that dollar an hour extra is right for your family, make that decision and go. No harm, no foul. We're not going to hold anybody back. But you got to know that we're not hiring back. We tell people all the time, if that's the right decision for you, we completely understand and we hope it turns out well, but we're not hiring back. And we say that because of how many people come back to us after the fact, because it's not about the money. It's about family. And so, so we don't compete on pay. I spend every bit as much as anybody else does. But again, we think about it a little differently. So we had a staff member who's coming off of an overnight shift, and she had left her headlights on. And, you come out at 6 a.m., you've been working all night, you're ready to go home, and her car's dead. I actually happened to have been there at the time. And so, went out and tried to give her a jump, and it wasn't working. And I said, well, why don't you stay here? I'll run it down to the auto parts store and have them test it and maybe spend a little bit of time charging it. And got there and they said, nah, it's dead. Well, I happen to know that this individual doesn't have the money to buy a battery. It's not budgeted. So, what is she going to do? We replaced the battery, brought it back and said, hey, it's all charged up and ready to go. Didn't even know that we had purchased a new battery.
Wow.
And so, we're going to take care of them. And again, it's not just in oh, hey, we're giving a raise. Oh, hey, it's about people. And so we're going to be strategic and targeted and take care of people in a way that actually matters. And we do have a policy with our residents that we don't do cost of living increases. We tell you when you move in, that's the price. And unfortunately, there's enough turnover in our business that you're going to, we'll get a cost of living increase on our next resident. But when you move in, that's the price, because we know that you're on a fixed income. And so we tell our staff members it's the same thing, is that there are ways to make more money, but that's by taking more responsibility. And as a growing company, the job that you have today, it's not going to be the only job that's available to you. And there's nothing I love better than helping a direct caregiver who's used to an hourly wage and trying to, eke out a little bit of overtime every time she gets a chance, putting them in a salaried position and helping her pay all of her bills on just 40 hours.
Yeah. So good. Yeah. Well, John, the TorchCon 22, the 38th annual conference for Torch, is coming up in just a couple of weeks. So tell me a little bit about, I know you're excited about it, so am I, but tell me a little bit about that and why it's so important for operators to get there, either live or virtual. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is, and I know it's cliche, but it is the networking. I talked about getting around people that are doing it. You're not going to get any better learning than that. There's no way to make your organization better than just being with your peers. But beyond that, the information, we've got a really solid lineup this year. As always, there's always regulation changes. So we've certainly got some folks from Health and Human Services Commission coming in to talk about regulatory updates, and backed by popular demand, Fred Worley will be talking about some of the life safety updates and things that you need to know. But I'm going to be honest with you, Mitch, before I tell you what I'm most excited about, we've actually got a state of the industry, right? Everybody sits around and wonders where it's going to go. Shep Harris kind of has a bird's eye view of the industry, both here in Texas, but also nationwide, because he works for one of the largest lenders in the space. It's got a pretty good handle on, where the industry is and where it's going. So I'm pretty excited to hear a state of the industry address. But I think the thing I'm most excited about is, quite frankly, is your presentation.
Cool.
I beat you over the head and drug you out because the rules of marketing have changed. They're completely different. And for most facilities, they, some of them haven't recognized that. Those that have, they're in the same boat as those that haven't, which is we just don't know where to go. We just don't know what to do. And when I say that the rules have changed, there was a day where you could fill your beds just by relationships with the discharge planners and the social workers at the hospitals and the rehab centers and the nursing homes. And well, those days are gone, right? A lot of them, they don't even allow you on the premises to go and do some business development with them. And those that do, they're nice and they're wonderful, and you're nice and wonderful, and they don't have time, right? I mean, and think about
Mm,
you and your business is when you're sitting in your office and the business development person from that pharmacy or that hospice pops in, that's just not your first priority.
right.
And so it's really hard in today's world to access the marketplace. And even when you're trying to access the general public, right? There was a day where it was great to take a dozen donuts and drop it off at the local senior center.
Mm,
You don't get to do that anymore.
yeah.
And so, there's still a need to fill beds, and there's still a need to get the word out. And so by default, what happens is the large internet placement agencies, or I should say search engines,
Mm,
end up gobbling up a larger and larger percentage of people's placements.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be that way.
that's right.
And so super excited to, for facilities to learn about, recognize what the new rules are, and get some strategies, some real strategies that they can just take some notes and go home and get started on, and start to be able to get back to leading the market in terms of people's choices where to go.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, we had a couple of different sessions. We're going to really dig into marketing. One we're going to talk about, we call it the ultimate website checklist, but getting your website ready for, folks who might wind up there. And then also for Google, unfortunately, Google really is, we have to treat them like a customer with our
Well, and
marketing.
I think
So
I think I've heard you say that 71% of people's search begins online.
yeah,
And is that number about right?
that's it.
So
You got it. Yep.
I would actually suggest that even that number's low. Is that, if I were to just guess, and I am just guessing, I would say that people that are looking, if not 100% of people are going to end up online, the
Yeah.
overwhelming majority, that number's got to be at least 90%. And so while, I suspect the difference between your number and my number is that the difference is somebody says, they're getting a list from a rehab center, or they're getting a referral from somebody. And so maybe that's their search started there, but they're going to end up online.
Yeah.
And, and so while most small facilities have considered a website a necessary evil, that's your front door.
Hmm.
They're
Yeah.
making a decision whether they're going to walk in your front door or call you based on your website. And so you need to treat that like you do your front yard.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have some dilapidated, broke down, you know, your neighbor down the road's kid painted your front door, and no, you're going to have that look nice. So really, your website is got to be front and central, and it's got to be mobile optimized. And again, just so many people, they just, they throw a little bit of effort into it. But again, if you're going to get placements moving forward, that's where it's coming from.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah, my number of 70% start there, but you're right. I mean, ultimately, before they, decide to fill out an application or move in, they are going to go look you up online. So whether they found you online or they, they will definitely check you out. So it's a major thing for sure. So John, how do we get registered for Torch? I believe the URL is txtorch.com/conference. Is that where I can go to register?
Yes, I just remember the txtorch.com part. And if you Google Torch, you're going to end up with a different trade association. You got to go to the txtorch.com. It's plastered all over my website.
Yeah.
If you're affiliated with any of the chapters, there's generally a chapter discount. Lots of different ways. And in fact, if you hear about if you heard about the conference from this podcast and you use the coupon code Mitch, that'll take $50 off of your registration. So you just need to type in Mitch in the coupon code, and that'll take $50 off of a full registration.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, John, I can't thank you enough, my friend, for coming on and giving us a bit of your expertise and authority in this space, and then also just the conversation about the conference. I'm really looking forward to being there and spending time with the members and yourself. And so I just appreciate you, buddy. Thanks so much for coming
Well,
on today.
I appreciate that, Mitch. I just know a whole bunch of ways not to do stuff, and I'm happy to share that.
That's great. That's the best stuff, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks again for listening. Hey, if you need help with your marketing, call me 817-904-5080. You can also text that number and let me know you need help. I'd love to help you. And if you're in Texas and you haven't registered for the Torch Conference, go to txtorch.com/conference and you can register right there. Use the coupon code Mitch to get $50 off. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.